The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. There exists a kind of mind that doesn't merely think, it dominates. Not through volume nor violence, but through a silent, penetrating force, a presence, a gravity. When this mind walks into a room, others become subtly smaller. Their certainties weaken, their voices drop. It's not magic. It's the byproduct of intellectual power so raw, so unapologetically free, that it terrifies people without uttering a word. This is the kind of mind Nietzsche alluded to. A mind forged in the fires of solitude, sharpened by contradiction, and awakened by its own shadow. Let's dissect how to build it, piece by piece, layer by layer, until it becomes something unshakable. Nietzsche's most dangerous and liberating truth is this: morality is not absolute. It is a weapon invented by the weak to control the strong. It is a cage disguised as virtue, and the most obedient minds are often the most hollow, repeating secondhand truths without ever looking behind the curtain. To build a mind that terrifies, you must tear down the world they gave you, starting with your place in it. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often, and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Friedrich Nietzsche. This is not metaphor, it's psychological warfare. The herd doesn't just want your cooperation, it wants your interior submission. It wants you to believe what it believes, feel guilt for thinking differently, and punish yourself when you try to break free. To escape this trap, you must accept exile. You must choose truth over belonging, walking away from consensus reality, the version of truth that is endlessly recycled through media, social circles, academia, and even your own upbringing. The masses do not seek truth, they seek relief. They crave certainty, not clarity. The strong mind must sever its need to be understood, questioning every belief you were taught, including the ones you hold most sacred, especially those. Your culture, religion, politics, education, these were given to you by others, most of whom were themselves unawakened. If you never doubt the sacred, you will never reach the sublime. Learning to sit with cognitive dissonance, most people will do anything to avoid the pain of conflicting thoughts. They drink it away, scroll it away, rationalize it away. But you must hold it in your hands, study it, let it fracture your old mind. Because only through discomfort does rebirth happen. Socrates did not die because he was wrong. He died because he made others uncomfortable. His crime? Asking better questions. He didn't fight with weapons. He wielded contradiction, curiosity, and brutal clarity. His questions shattered the illusions of the elite, revealing that their certainty was built on sand. The Athenian court sentenced him to death for corrupting the youth and impiety. But the truth was simpler. He exposed their fragility. Socrates was executed not by evil, but by the mediocrity of the majority. Nietzsche admired Socrates and despised the comfort of the masses for this very reason. He saw that truth is fire, and that most people would rather burn the messenger than light their own minds. Today, the penalty for independent thought is not death. It's social erasure, deplatforming, mockery, job loss, family alienation. But the mechanism is the same. Punish the heretic to protect the illusion. If you start speaking dangerous truths about power, human nature, the lies behind virtue, you will feel the cold wind of exile. You'll be called arrogant, insensitive, delusional, even cruel. And this is the point where most retreat. They compromise their mind to save their image. But if you hold steady, if you do not flinch, you begin to transform. A terrifying mind is not built in safety. It is forged in the heat of opposition. You must be willing to burn in your own flame. How could you rise anew if you have not first become ashes? This is not poetic metaphor. It is a psychological requirement. To become a force, your ego must be shattered. You must stand alone, with nothing but your thoughts and your will. That is where your real education begins. Your intellect sharpens, your instincts return. Your identity detaches from tribal labels. You stop parroting beliefs. You start generating insight. And then, something terrifying happens. You no longer need them. Not their approval, not their validation, not their truth. At this point, you no longer conform to reality. You reshape it. And when others see that you are no longer moved by their shame, their rules, or their hierarchy, they fear you. Not because you're evil, but because you are free. So ask yourself, what beliefs do you still hold just to avoid being alone? What part of you still craves acceptance by people you don't even admire? What would happen if you walked away from the herd, not with resentment but with clarity? Because in the end, a terrifying mind is not loud. It is not cruel. It is simply unowned. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process, he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. The terrifying mind is not the one that screams. It is the one that has been to hell and chose to stay conscious. Most people walk through life with masks, polite, nice, humble, agreeable. But behind these masks lies a raging chaos of denied impulses, unmet needs, unsaid truths, and unlived potential. This is what Jung called the shadow, and what Nietzsche warned us never to ignore. The shadow is not evil. It is raw power. It is the you that you silence to survive. It is the voice you repress to be accepted. It is your unclaimed rage, sexual hunger, jealousy, ambition, and pride, banished to the basement of your psyche like a prisoner too dangerous to roam freely. But here's the paradox. The more you reject your darkness, the more it controls you. The psychology of repression is clear. What you refuse to face does not disappear. It operates in the dark. You bury your rage, and it leaks as passive aggression. You suppress your lust, and it mutates into obsession. You reject your envy, and it festers as self-loathing. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. In dark psychology, this unconscious shadow is the primary vulnerability. Why? Because those who do not know their darkness can be puppeteered by it. A manipulator only needs to find your unlived emotion, your secret insecurity, your guilt, your unacknowledged need, and pull it like a lever. The strongest minds aren't the most moral. They're the most integrated. They have no parts of themselves hidden away. There's nothing to blackmail, nothing to shame, nothing to exploit. They are unblackmailable. Nietzsche's vision of the Übermensch was not about superiority. It was about wholeness. A person who no longer bowed to external codes of good and evil, but who crafted their own values from the full spectrum of human instinct. This required a descent into the abyss of the self, a terrifying confrontation with everything you've denied. But here lies the key. That descent doesn't destroy you. It makes you godlike. You become sovereign over your instincts. You don't act them out impulsively, you wield them. You don't suppress your rage, you refine it into assertiveness. You don't run from your ambition, you direct it like a laser. Your darkness is no longer chaos, it becomes your engine. Carl Jung, the psychological heir to Nietzsche, saw firsthand what happened to men who were ripped from their illusions. After World War I, soldiers returned broken, not just from the violence they endured, but from the violence they committed. Many had lived out their darkest instincts, rage, killing, dominance, and could not reintegrate into the polite, sanitized society that now judged them. Some went mad. Others became alcoholics. Most lived quietly haunted, punished not by the war, but by the unclaimed parts of themselves. But a few healed. How? They faced what they had done. They accepted that they had met their inner monster and lived. They didn't sanitize their soul, they made peace with it. And in doing so, they emerged stronger, not kinder, not more normal, but awake. In each of us, there is another whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves. Carl Jung. If you continue to deny your darkness, you will explode emotionally when triggered. You will sabotage relationships, pushing people away, then blaming them. You will attract manipulators, narcissists, and sadists who feed on your repressed parts. You will never trust yourself fully, because you don't know yourself fully. But if you face it, you become emotionally stable, even under pressure. You see through manipulation, because you understand the tools of darkness. You become intimidating without trying, because your presence radiates wholeness. You gain a terrifying clarity, not because you've removed contradiction, but because you've learned to hold it without being torn apart. Track your triggers. When do you overreact? What do you hate in others? These are clues to your shadow. Write your sins. List the things you've thought, wanted, or done that you've never admitted. Then read them out loud to yourself. Accept them. Speak your truth, in small doses. Start saying what you mean, not to be rude, but to stop hiding. Channel your darkness into discipline, rage into intensity, lust into charisma, ambition into mastery. Study myth, dream, and archetype. Your unconscious speaks in symbols. Learn its language. The stronger your symbolic awareness, the more precise your self-awareness. The reason most people are forgettable is because they are incomplete. They have amputated half their psyche to appear good, and the result is weakness disguised as virtue. To be feared, respected, and trusted all at once, you must be dangerous, but under control. You must be capable of great destruction, and choose creation. You must be able to kill the old self, and not flinch. This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming who you are. Not the nice version, not the polite persona, but the full spectrum of your being, seen, known, integrated. In individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epics, it is the rule. Powerful minds are not built in crowds. They are sculpted in silence. In an age that worships connection, stimulation, and constant affirmation, solitude is seen as a disease. But for the ones seeking to build a mind that terrifies, not with rage but with clarity, solitude is not optional. It is the crucible. The modern mind is overstimulated and underdeveloped. Social media feeds you opinions before you can form your own. Notifications fragment your attention before you can descend into depth. The digital crowd keeps you reactive, not reflective. Solitude is a threat to this entire system, because solitude makes you see. It silences the noise long enough for your mind to hear itself think, and what it finds is often terrifying, because it's real. The more powerful and original a mind, the more it will incline towards the religion of solitude. Aldous Huxley. To cultivate such a mind, you must undergo what most cannot tolerate: intellectual aloneness. A silence so complete that your ideas are no longer echoes, but emergent forces, and that's where real danger begins. Nietzsche lived most of his life in self-imposed exile. He walked alone through the Alps, wrote in near isolation, suffered debilitating migraines, and endured rejection from both academia and society. And eventually, he broke. But what the shallow mind calls madness, the awakened mind recognizes as overflow. Nietzsche was not destroyed by solitude. He was expanded beyond containment. His writings, especially Thus Spoke Zarathustra and The Will to Power, are not safe philosophies. They are tectonic plates shifting under the soul of modern man. He shattered consensus. He replaced truth with will, morality with overcoming, and God with the self. These were not the thoughts of a sick mind, but of a mind too vast for shallow times. In 1665, as the Great Plague ravaged London, Isaac Newton left the city and retreated to his family's rural estate. For 2 years, while society collapsed in panic and disease, Newton was alone, completely removed from formal education, peers, and distractions. What emerged from that solitude? Calculus, the foundations of classical mechanics, the theory of gravity. While the masses fled or died, Newton transcended. He used radical solitude as a weapon to pull truth from the void. Not because he was superhuman, but because he was alone long enough for his thoughts to take root, deepen, and solidify into law. Why do people fear silence? Because in silence you meet yourself, without performance, without distraction, without applause. And for most, that meeting is unbearable. They fear the memories they've buried. They fear the dreams they abandoned. They fear the contradictions they can no longer mask with noise. And so they avoid solitude by outsourcing their minds to others, opinions, ideologies, groups, gurus. But what they outsource, you must insource. Because a terrifying mind is not built by consumption, it is built by compression. Ideas must be pressurized in silence until they crystallize into insight. Only then can they cut through the fog of collective illusion. Block out the feed. For a time, remove input: social media, podcasts, YouTube, chatter. Let your inner voice rise through the static. Ritualize silence, daily walks, nightly journaling, dawn hours without sound. Train your brain to find pleasure in stillness. Have long conversations with yourself. Not idle daydreams, dialogues. Ask yourself terrifying questions and answer them honestly. Read the mad geniuses: Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, Kafka, Pascal. Let them walk with you. They will not comfort, but they will ignite. Let boredom break you. Boredom is the surface-level defense mechanism of an untrained mind. Sit with it until it fractures and reveals your real inner landscape. After weeks or months of radical solitude, something strange begins to happen. Your thoughts gain weight, your speech slows, but becomes sharper. You begin to detect lies, not just in others, but in the very language of society. You stop reacting and start observing, with unnerving calm. You enter rooms differently, not louder, but with a depth that unsettles. People don't know why they're intimidated, but they are. This is the hidden law of power. Stillness radiates force. Noise is only power to the insecure. Imagine your mind as a cathedral. Each moment of silence, each hour in solitude is like a stone laid in its architecture. Most build theirs out of noise, cardboard, cheap imitation. But yours is built in the dark. In the silence, in the abyss between stimulation and selfhood. And when it is finished, when your mind stands on its own, echoing only with its own thoughts, it will no longer be like others. It will disturb them. Because the world is not afraid of what it understands. The world fears what it cannot decode. And your silence will be unreadable. Your presence, uncontrollable. Your thoughts, your own. That is the terrifying power of solitude. And that is how gods are born in the age of noise. The noble soul has reverence for itself. To wield a terrifying mind, you must do something that fractures ordinary minds. Hold contradiction without shattering. The weak seek consistency. The strong seek truth. And truth, when seen naked, is not neat, elegant, or symmetrical. It's chaotic, wild, self-devouring. It's a tiger you ride, not a dog you train. The terrifying mind is not obsessed with being right. It is obsessed with being real. And reality is not linear. You must master the ability to say yes and also no. This is true, and so is its opposite. There is meaning, and yet everything is absurd. Because when you can live inside paradox without flinching, your mind becomes something unreadable, a weapon of intelligence, precision, and danger. Nietzsche's writings are a storm of contradictions, but not because he was inconsistent, because he was alive to complexity. His genius was not in giving answers, but in tearing answers apart. He praised the will to power, yet warned of hubris. He admired strength, but spoke of love as something sacred. He rejected morality, but spoke constantly of the higher man. He attacked religion, but built mythologies as spiritual scaffolding. This isn't hypocrisy, it's meta-thinking. Thinking about thought itself. It's the realization that truth shifts depending on the vantage point, the moment, the depth of your vision, and that no single perspective owns reality. To read Nietzsche properly is to be disoriented, and that's the point. He doesn't want you to agree with him. He wants you to outgrow the need to agree at all. People crave certainty, black or white, good or evil, right or wrong, and manipulators feed on this. Why? Because a mind addicted to clarity is desperate, and desperation is control. Cult leaders sell total truth, politicians weaponize simplicity, narcissists use black and white morality to gaslight, shame, and dominate. The terrifying mind is immune, because it thinks in spectrums, not boxes. It doesn't need clean categories, it thrives in gray zones where reality breathes. Nietzsche wrote, "The higher man is distinguished from the lower by his fearlessness and his capacity for suffering." He saw that true power is not callousness, it's the ability to embrace contradiction, to be ruthless when needed, and yet tender when earned, to destroy illusions, but not the hearts that believe them, to break men's pride, and still lift them when they fall. Compassion, then, is not weakness. It is an optional strength. Only the truly strong can afford to feel deeply and still hold their shape. The samurai were trained in the art of death, but also in poetry, stillness, and reverence. They were both executioners and monks. Why? Because a sword without spirit is just brutality. The terrifying presence of a samurai came not from violence, but from the fact that they had integrated both halves of the human soul. You must become the same. Part killer of illusion, part guardian of the soul. A mind that thinks like a machine but feels like a poet. Argue against yourself. Take your strongest belief and demolish it with logic. Make yourself doubt. This is mental anti-fragility training. Read thinkers who contradict each other. Nietzsche and the Buddha. Schopenhauer and Marcus Aurelius, Dostoevsky and Darwin. Let their collision sharpen your mind. Sit with emotional tension. When you feel love and rage simultaneously, don't resolve it. Observe. Journal. Let the mind stretch wide enough to contain both. Tell the truth and the opposite. Learn how two truths can exist at once depending on lens. I am nothing. I am infinite. Both are true from different layers of being. When you master contradiction, no insult destabilizes you. No ideology cages you. No manipulator can predict you. People will try to decode you and fail. Because your mind is not a system. It's a living contradiction, constantly evolving, fluid, dangerous. You are neither this nor that. You are the space between categories, a living edge. Nietzsche didn't give the world a map. He gave it a mirror and then shattered it. He taught that power isn't in certainty, but in the ability to dance on the edge of uncertainty. So, master paradox, not as a trick, but as a form of sovereignty. The world will call you inconsistent, arrogant, confusing. Let them, because while they fight over which truth is correct, you will hold the blade of contradiction in your hand and cut deeper than any of them ever could. What does not kill me makes me stronger. There is one trait all weak minds share. They are scripted by someone else. Their beliefs were given to them. Their values were inherited. Their identity is a patchwork of opinions, rejections, projections, and unresolved traumas. They are living second-hand stories, edited by fear, co-authored by society, and published under a name that was never truly theirs. A mind that terrifies is not just intelligent, it is authored. It has narrative sovereignty, the ability to reclaim and rewrite the meaning of every event it has survived. In the dark architecture of psychology, one law governs all human minds. We are meaning-making machines. But here's the trap. If you don't choose the meaning, someone else will. Your family will tell you who you are. Your culture will define what success means. Your trauma will whisper, "You're broken." Society will push a script. "You're too late. You're too much. You're not enough." The terrifying mind rejects all of this, not with denial, but with reinterpretation. It looks at its failures, humiliations, losses, and rewrites them, not as wounds to hide, but as mythic trials in its origin story. Nietzsche asked a devastating question. What if someday or night a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more." This is the doctrine of eternal recurrence, a metaphysical test of your authenticity. If you had to live your exact life again, every failure, every betrayal, every heartbreak, would you choose it? Only a fully integrated mind can say yes. Only a mind that has transformed suffering into significance can look at its pain and call it beautiful. This idea isn't about metaphysics. It's about psychological freedom. If you can say, "Yes, I would live it all again because I have made it mine," then no one owns you. And that is terrifying to those who are still enslaved by their own past. Victimhood is seductive. It gives you sympathy, identity, and a ready-made reason to stay small. But it costs you your power. If you can be shamed by your past, you can be controlled. If you hide your mistakes, manipulators can find them and leverage them. If you feel guilt for who you were, you will never become who you could be. The terrifying mind is one that says, "Yes, I did it. I failed, I fell, I hurt, and I own all of it." This is narrative invincibility. Like a mythic hero, you transform shame into armor and regret into fuel. Malcolm X entered prison as a bitter, angry criminal. But in isolation, he found a weapon far sharper than violence: self-authorship. He read obsessively, wrote relentlessly, and rebuilt himself from the ground up. Prison became his university, and rage became his clarity. He emerged not as a victim, but as a voice that shook empires. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, could have withered in hate. Instead, he turned captivity into strategy. He studied his enemies, mastered their psychology. He didn't just forgive, he outgrew revenge. His prison cell became the crucible of statesmanship. When he walked free, he wasn't seeking vengeance. He was ready to lead. Both men rewrote their narrative mid-sentence and made the world read it. So must you. Manipulators, cult leaders, and narcissists all prey on the same target, the unformed identity. If you don't know your story, they'll sell you one. They'll offer you belonging in exchange for self-betrayal. They'll fill your gaps with guilt and call it love. They'll name your failures and ask you to apologize for them forever. But once you name yourself, once you say, "This is who I am, I chose it, I earned it," their power collapses. You become unframeable. Write your life as a myth. Don't describe events, extract symbols. Betrayal becomes a dragon. Depression becomes a cave. A breakup becomes a death and rebirth. Recast yourself as the protagonist, not the casualty. Reclaim your shame. Make a list of what embarrasses you most. Then write how it forged your strength. No part of you should be hidden. Only what's owned can be weaponized. Publicly reframe pain. Speak your story before others can. Not to gain pity, but to show transformation. Let them know you've metabolized the poison and turned it into poetry. Kill the old author. Fire the voice in your head that still speaks with your parents' fear, your ex's criticism, society's rules. Write a new voice, yours. Live as if the whole world is your audience. Act, speak, and move like your story is being told to future generations. This changes your entire posture toward life. Talking much about oneself can also be a means to conceal oneself. The most dangerous minds do not raise their voices. They don't rush to be heard. They don't overshare, over-explain, or try to prove anything. They observe, and when they speak, it's a scalpel, not a scream. In a world drowning in noise, silence is not absence. It is power condensed. Where the average mind needs 10 words, the terrifying mind needs one, and that one word lands like a hammer in a room of feathers. We live in a culture addicted to expression. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, validated, applauded. The result? Verbal inflation. Words lose weight, opinions are cheap, reactions are immediate. But the powerful mind isn't reactive, it's deliberate. And its most strategic move is often withholding. Why? Because silence creates space, and space makes people uncomfortable. The human brain hates uncertainty. When there's silence, it starts to spiral. Did I say something wrong? What are they thinking? Why aren't they answering? Are they judging me? And so, in their panic, people reveal everything. The strong mind simply listens and collects leverage. Here's the truth they never teach you. Most people talk to control the frame, to assert dominance, to define the terms, to protect their ego. But every word they utter is data, every sentence, a confession. The master of dark psychology understands this deeply. They stay silent long enough for others to overexpose their insecurities, reveal their lies, contradict themselves. Try to fill the silence with justification, weakness, or apology. The more you listen, the more power you gather. In the psychology of interrogation, one tool is more effective than any trick: silence. Criminals often crack, not under pressure, but under nothing. When the interrogator says nothing, the suspect becomes agitated. They start second-guessing. Their guilt becomes unbearable in the void. They confess, just to fill the gap. This isn't just for criminals. It applies everywhere. In negotiations, silence forces the other side to reveal their bottom line. In relationships, silence exposes insecurity or guilt. In conflict, your stillness makes the other person doubt their own aggression. The terrifying mind is not cold, it's measured. It doesn't withdraw, it withholds. And that withholding creates imbalance in others, because most are not built to face silence. In your next argument, negotiation, or emotional moment, say nothing. Literally. Breathe. Stay still. Look directly at the person and observe. Here's what will likely happen. They will begin to explain themselves without being asked. They will project their fears or assumptions onto you. They will grow anxious and start negotiating against themselves. They will reveal far more than they intended. Why? Because your calm forces them into chaos, and in that chaos, their mask slips. You didn't have to attack. You didn't have to defend. You owned the frame by simply refusing to react. Speak only when the impact is maximized. Ask yourself, will these words move the situation forward? If not, stay quiet. Ask precision questions. The terrifying mind doesn't argue, it interrogates. One cutting question can destabilize an entire worldview. Let silence do the work. After asking a question, don't clarify it. Don't rescue the other person. Let the silence hang. Let them stew. In social settings, observe more than you perform. The less you say, the more weight your words carry when you finally speak. Use stillness as presence. When you enter a room, don't fill it. Anchor it. Your silence should feel like gravity, pulling others into your field. The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well, the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind. A terrifying mind is not only silent, poised, and self-authored. It is also dangerously precise. Most people are emotionally driven, ideologically locked, and logically soft. Their thinking is shallow. Their opinions are echoes. Their minds resemble overfed bodies with no muscle, bloated, untrained, fragile. If you want to become formidable, the kind of person who dismantles assumptions in midair, who sees through lies like glass, who cannot be trapped in false dilemmas, you must become a mental athlete. Because intelligence alone is not enough. You must train, sharpen, stretch, strip, rebuild, until your mind becomes something others don't even know how to approach, let alone attack. In every room, there are two forms of power: emotional gravity, how others feel in your presence, and cognitive supremacy, how others think when they meet your mind. Most people lean on emotion, but emotion can be manipulated. Cold logic fused with soul depth, that's unbreakable. The terrifying mind is one that remains calm in chaos, dismantles lies gently but without mercy, refuses ideological imprisonment, uses both logic and empathy not as opposites, but as dual blades. This is not about being a genius. It's about being disciplined, training your cognitive toolkit like a samurai polishes his sword. 1. Study logic until you see fallacies like smoke in the air. Most conversations are riddled with logical fallacies: straw man ad hominem, appeal to emotion, false dilemma, slippery slope post hoc. When untrained, these go unnoticed, but when your mind is honed, they glow red. You hear them and immediately know, this argument is hollow. This person doesn't know they're lying, or worse, they do. A terrifying mind doesn't argue emotionally. It cuts precisely, revealing inconsistency without raising its voice. 2. Read the dark thinkers. Learn to navigate the abyss. If you want to build a mind that can hold the complexity of the human condition, you must read those who dared to descend into it. Nietzsche, the prophet of will, chaos, self-overcoming Schopenhauer, who exposed the suffering embedded in existence Machiavelli, who stripped power of its moral facade Jung, who mapped the unconscious and the mythic self Dostoevsky, who wrote madness, guilt, and faith as if from inside a soul on fire. These thinkers don't make you comfortable. They make you dangerous, because once you've walked with their thoughts, shallow opinions become nauseating. You no longer speak to be liked, you speak to illuminate. 3. Train cold reasoning, then add empathy as a weapon. Logic alone is sterile, but logic fused with emotional intelligence becomes irresistible. The most powerful minds can break down an argument step by step like a scientist, detect shifts in tone, emotion, and hidden insecurity. Use empathy not to soothe, but to disarm and redirect. Empathy as a weapon means reading people so well, they lose track of themselves. You don't shame them. You let them expose themselves, and then hand them the mirror. This is how you win without raising your voice, by making the truth undeniable. The CIA trains elite analysts in a way that has nothing to do with movies, and everything to do with depth.